The cold December air bit at their cheeks as the kids huddled together on the edge of Main Street. They had been waiting for this moment for weeks, rehearsing every note and harmony. But now, the joy had turned to humiliation. "You're not suitable for tonight's crowd," Mrs. Whitman, the concert organizer, had said, her eyes scanning their skin color, thrift store clothes, and worn shoes. Suitable. The word rang in Deshawn's ears as he clutched his guitar. Keisha, the group's lead singer, blinked rapidly, willing herself not to cry. Elijah, the youngest at 10, clenched his tiny fists, his voice trembling. "But we practiced so hard." "We're sorry," Mrs. Whitman had said, not sounding sorry at all, before ushering a polished choir of neatly dressed white kids onto the stage. Now they stood on the sidewalk, watching the crowd drift inside, their dreams crushed, until a stranger stopped. He was tall, with a camera slung over his shoulder. "What's going on here?" We were supposed to perform," Keisha said, her voice barely above a whisper. The man raised an eyebrow, glancing at the guitar, the tambourine, and the homemade microphone stand. "Why don't you perform right here?" Deshawn exchanged a look with the others. What did they have to lose? And so, with the first strum of the guitar, they sang, not for the concert crowd, but for themselves. Keisha's voice soared above the bustling street, drawing people to the sidewalk. Elijah's tambourine added a beat that made heads nod. Even Deshawn, who rarely smiled, felt a warmth spread in his chest as their music filled the air. Unbeknownst to them, the stranger was filming. The small crowd grew as their music rippled through the chilly night air. At first, it was just passers-by stopping out of curiosity. A young couple paused mid-stride, holding hands. An older man with a cane leaned against a lamppost, nodding to the rhythm. Soon, more people gathered, some taking out their phones to record. Keisha's voice trembled at first, but as she saw the crowd's reactions, her confidence swelled. She belted out the last note of Silent Night with so much emotion that even Deshawn stopped strumming for a second, stunned by her power. As the song ended, applause broke out, loud and unexpected. Elijah, wide-eyed, looked up at Keisha. "They like our song," he whispered. "They love you," the stranger with the camera said, grinning. He stepped forward, his face illuminated by the streetlights. "Name's Marcus, I'm a freelance videographer. Do you mind if I post this online?" Keisha hesitated, glancing at Deshawn. He was the oldest and their unofficial leader. Deshawn's jaw tightened. "What good will that do? We're just some kids singing on the street." Marcus crouched down to their level, his tone serious but kind. "Sometimes all it takes is the right person seeing something special. And trust me, you kids are special." The group exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, Keisha nodded. "Okay." Marcus smiled and gestured for them to continue. "Keep going. Play what feels right." Deshawn adjusted his guitar strap, starting a slow strum of This Christmas. Keisha's voice wrapped around the melody, and Elijah's tambourine kept perfect time. The crowd swayed, a few people singing along. The time they finished, the crowd erupted into cheers. Someone tossed a few dollars into Elijah's tambourine, and soon others followed, dropping bills and coins. As they packed up for the night, Marcus approached again. "I'll post this tonight. Keep an eye out. You guys were really great." Later that night, Keisha lay awake in the small room she shared with her younger sister, Tasha. The walls were thin, and she could hear their mother coughing in the next room. She knew what it meant. Mom's condition was getting worse, but there was no money for more doctor visits. Keisha stared at the ceiling, replaying the night in her mind. For a brief moment, while singing on that street, she had felt powerful, important. But now, the weight of reality crept back in. The other kids had their own struggles, too. Deshawn lived with his grandmother, who worked nights as a janitor to keep their tiny apartment. He'd learned to play guitar from his father before he went to prison, and it was his escape from the chaos of the world. Elijah's story was no easier. At just 10, he'd already faced more hardship than most. His mother worked 2 jobs, and he often stayed with an elderly neighbor after school. Music was his way of feeling close to his late father, who used to hum lullabies to him every night. Each of them carried their own scars, but together, they found something that gave them hope. That night, none of them could have imagined what the next day would bring. Morning broke with a wintry chill. Keisha woke to the sound of her sister yelling from the kitchen. "Keisha, come look!" Tasha's voice was shrill with excitement. Groaning, Keisha rolled out of bed, still sore from standing in the cold the night before. She shuffled to the kitchen to find Tasha holding a phone, her small fingers trembling. "Look!" Tasha shoved the phone in Keisha's face. Keisha squinted at the screen. It was Marcus's video from last night. She recognized herself, Elijah, and Deshaun huddled on the sidewalk as their voices soared into the night. But what made her jaw drop was the view count at the bottom of the video. 47,000 views, and climbing. Her breath caught. "No way! Read the comments," Tasha squealed, jumping up and down. Keisha scrolled, her eyes widening at the flood of positive words. These kids are amazing, pure talent. How could anyone turn them away from a concert? Shame on the organizers. Someone give them a record deal already. Her hands shook as she dialed Deshaun's number. Meanwhile, across town, Deshaun was helping his grandmother load her cleaning supplies into the back of her old car when his phone buzzed. "Keisha, what's wrong?" "Have you seen it?" she blurted out. "Seen what?" "The video Marcus posted. Deshaun, it's going viral." Deshaun frowned, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What are you talking about?" "Check your phone. Now." Deshaun pulled out his phone and found the video. He stared at the view count and comments, his mind racing. Viral? That couldn't be real. But it was. By the afternoon, the video had hit 100,000 views. News outlets started picking it up, and Marcus's phone rang non-stop with inquiries. Marcus called Keisha first. "You won't believe this," he said, his voice brimming with excitement. "A local news station wants to interview you kids." Keisha dropped the dish she was washing. "What? Are you serious?" The next day, they gathered downtown, shivering in their coats. Marcus met them, his camera already rolling. A news crew was waiting nearby, setting up lights and microphones. Keisha looked at Deshaun, her nerves showing. "What if we mess up?" Deshaun smirked, strumming his guitar. "We've sung in worse places, just think of it as practice." The camera crew signaled they were ready. The kids launched into their rendition of "Oh Holy Night," their voices harmonizing beautifully. Pedestrians stopped to listen, forming a crowd once again. Afterward, the reporter approached them with a warm smile. "You kids are incredible. How does it feel to have your talent recognized after being turned away from the Christmas concert?" Keisha hesitated, but Deshaun stepped forward. "It feels good," he said, his voice steady. "But we're not just doing this for us. We're doing it for kids like us who've been told they're not good enough. Because we are." The reporter nodded, clearly impressed. "What's next for you all?" Deshaun glanced at Keisha, then at Elijah. They didn't have an answer yet, but one thing was certain. Their lives were about to change. By the end of the week, the video had surpassed 1 million views. Social media exploded with hashtags like Sosker Street Choir Kids and Voices of Hope. Strangers from all over the country shared the video, calling out the injustice they had faced and praising their undeniable talent. Donations poured in through a crowdfunding campaign Marcus had set up. The kids were stunned when Marcus shared the amount with them, over $20,000 in just 3 days. By the end of the week, the video had surpassed 1 million views. Social media exploded with hashtags like Street Choir Kids and Non-Voices of Hope. Strangers from all over the country shared the video, calling out the injustice they had faced and praising their undeniable talent. Donations poured in through a crowdfunding campaign Marcus had set up. The kids were stunned when Marcus shared the amount with them, over $20,000 in just 3 days. "What do we do with all this?" Elijah asked, his wide eyes fixed on the screen. Deshaun crossed his arms. "We give back to our school. They need it more than we do." Keisha nodded. "Yeah, and we can use some of it to get better equipment. Imagine how much better we'd sound with real instruments." Their selflessness caught the attention of local and national media outlets. Invitations to perform poured in, from holiday events to national TV shows. But as their fame grew, so did the challenges. The attention wasn't all positive. Online trolls criticized their appearance and questioned their talent. Deshaun, who had always been the group's rock, found himself retreating. One night, Keisha found him strumming his guitar alone in the school's empty music room. "Are you okay?" she asked, sitting beside him. Deshaun shrugged. "I don't know if I'm cut out for all this. It's like people are waiting for us to fail." Keisha placed a hand on his shoulder. "We didn't come this far to let them win. Look at Elijah. He's 10 and he's handling this better than us." Deshaun chuckled despite himself. "Yeah, that kid's tough. And so are we," Keisha said firmly. "We have a chance to show the world what we're made of. Don't let them take that away from us." On Christmas Eve, the kids were invited to perform at a high-profile charity gala. The mayor, local celebrities, and even the same concert organizer who had turned them away were in attendance. As the kids took the stage, Deshaun glanced at Mrs. Whitman in the audience. She avoided his gaze, her cheeks red with embarrassment. The kids poured their hearts into their performance, singing a mix of Christmas classics and original songs they had written together. By the end, the audience was on their feet, clapping and cheering. As they bowed, the event organizer approached them with tears in her eyes. "I was wrong to dismiss you," she said. "You've inspired us all tonight." For the first time, Deshaun felt the sting of bitterness fade. "Thank you," he said simply. By New Year's Day, the kids had signed with a talent agency. They used their crowdfunding money to buy new instruments and donate the rest to their school, which desperately needed supplies and repairs. They also started a program to teach music to other underprivileged kids in their community, ensuring no child would feel like they weren't suitable for opportunities. As they toured schools and performed in bigger venues, they stayed grounded, never forgetting the night they sang on the street and changed their lives forever. One evening, as they rehearsed for a national TV appearance, Elijah looked up at Keisha and Deshaun. "Do you think we'll ever stop singing together?" Keisha smiled. "Not as long as we have a story to tell." And their story, of resilience, hope, and the power of music, was one the world would never forget.